Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, Lena, my brain is honestly still catching up to the news here, so I really need you to walk me through this. Just a few weeks ago, April 1st, 2026, NASA sent 4 humans around the moon for the first time in over 50 years. Artemis 2 splashed down safely on April 10th, and then almost literally overnight, everyone is suddenly talking about a brand new space race. So, is this actually happening, or is it just the post-mission hype talking?
Alex, I promise you, this is not hype. This is the real deal. We are officially in a new moon race. And the craziest part is that it's moving faster than most people even realize. The whole timeline has shifted dramatically.
All right, I'm totally hooked. Walk me through it because I really want to separate the reality from the rumors here. I keep hearing that the entire grand plan for deep space exploration just got flipped upside down right after we finally got back. That is exactly what happened. While the rest of the world was busy throwing ticker tape parades and celebrating a massive, historic success, behind the scenes, NASA completely ripped up the old playbook for what comes next. Decades of careful, methodical planning, they pretty much scrapped it for something much, much faster.
So let's actually set the stage with Artemis 2. This was our highly anticipated crewed test flight. We had 4 absolutely incredible astronauts on board. You had Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, who, by the way, made history as one of the first black astronauts on a deep space mission, Christina Cook, who already holds the record for the longest single space flight by a woman, and Canadian astronaut Jeremy Hansen. They spent 10 flawless days aboard the Orion spacecraft, which they proudly named Integrity. It was a total triumph. But while this historic flight provided the perfect backdrop, it was really just the prologue for a massive operational shift that was coming.
Okay, so if the old playbook was thrown out right after they landed, what exactly is the new one? Because I remember hearing for years, literally years, about building a fancy space station that would orbit the moon.
Right, exactly. The old strategy relied heavily on building that orbital station, called the Lunar Gateway. It was kind of a safe, methodical stepping stone. But on March 24, 2026, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman dropped an absolute bombshell on the aerospace community. He announced the ignition paradigm shift. Gateway development is now paused indefinitely. Instead, the whole strategy is a surface-first moon base, leaning heavily on commercial rockets rather than the traditional government-owned ones.
Wait, really? They just canceled a whole orbital space station to go straight down into the dirt?
Paused indefinitely, yes. They basically skipped the orbital safe zone and shifted all that focus and all that funding straight to the lunar surface.
What even triggers a massive, fundamental pivot like that so quickly? You don't just change a multi-billion-dollar roadmap overnight without a major reason.
It comes down to a major policy directive. In December 2025, Executive Order 14369, which was titled Ensuring American Space Superiority, was issued by the Trump administration. The mandate was incredibly clear: rapid expansion of our lunar capabilities. The driving forces behind this pivot are actually pretty straightforward. They want to establish a continuously crewed base, vastly accelerate space nuclear power, and aggressively bring in commercial partnerships to get it all done faster than a government agency could do on its own.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline because this is where my brain starts to hurt a little bit. How do you actually build a permanent base on the moon in just a few years?
By moving at a pace that is making traditional aerospace engineers sweat. The ignition strategy outlines 3 rapid phases. Phase 1 starts right now, focusing entirely on reliable access and communications. Phase 2 kicks off in 2029 to lay down the initial base hardware. And then Phase 3, starting in 2032, aims for a permanent or at least semi-permanent crew presence.
Wait, hold on. 2029? That is literally right around the corner. In space planning years, 2029 is basically tomorrow. Laying down base hardware that soon sounds completely impossible.
It definitely sounds impossible until you realize how they are doing it. Think about the layout of the planned permanent base down at the Lunar South Pole. Because they paused the Gateway station we talked about earlier, NASA is actually pivoting all of that already built orbital hardware right into the dirt. Huge elements like the Halo module, that's the habitation and logistics outpost, are being retrofitted and repurposed directly for surface operations. So they aren't starting from scratch, they are repurposing what they already have.
Okay, but getting all that heavy orbital metal all the way down to the surface of the moon, the sheer scale of this is blowing my mind. Look at the massive jump in payload capacity.
It is a massive architectural leap. So in Phase 1, we're talking about roughly 4,000 kilograms of payload to the surface. That's a few rovers and instruments, right? But Phase 2 jumps to 60,000 kilos. And by Phase 3, we are dropping 150,000 kilograms onto the moon at a time. That includes full habitats, logistics modules, and even fission surface power plants.
150,000 kilos? That is literally a whole neighborhood dropping out of the sky. How do you even lift that?
You need next-generation, heavy-lift commercial rockets. We're talking fully reusable mega rockets like SpaceX's Starship and Blue Origin's New Glenn. The old rockets simply could not handle this kind of tonnage.
And the tempo of these launches is just staggering. Just in Phase 1, so between now and 2028, the goal is 25 launches and 21 landings. They are setting up 2 entire lunar orbital communication satellite constellations just to provide 500 megabits per second of data back to Earth.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Did you say Moonfall hopping drones?
Oh, I love this part. Yes, using avionics similar to the Mars Ingenuity helicopter, they are creating propulsive drones that will literally hop across the lunar surface for 150 seconds at a time. It is the absolute fastest way to map out the treacherous craters and deep, pitch-black shadows of the South Pole without risking a rover getting stuck.
Wow, hopping drones. Okay, what about the actual human astronauts? How are they getting around once they're down there?
They will be driving Lunar Terrain Vehicles, or LTVs. And Alex, these are not your grandfather's Apollo buggies. These are 500-kilogram beasts. They can climb 20-degree slopes and hit speeds of 10 kilometers per hour. And incredibly, they are engineered to survive 150 hours in the freezing shadow of the lunar night, where temperatures plummet to minus 200 degrees Celsius. It's just a total engineering marvel.
Okay, I get the hardware. But flying fuel, water, and supplies from Earth for all these buggies and habitats has to be astronomically expensive. There is no way that is sustainable for a permanent base.
You hit the nail on the head. Which brings us to the ultimate bottleneck breaker, ISRU, In Situ Resource Utilization. It basically means living off the land. If we have to bring every single drop of water and ounce of fuel from Earth, a permanent base is impossible. We absolutely have to extract local materials to survive in deep space.
So basically we're talking about packing light and making what you need when you get there. Kind of like camping?
Exactly, but extreme, high-stakes survival camping.
Which perfectly explains why everyone is so obsessed with the South Pole. Why is lunar water ice considered the most valuable resource in space right now? Because it is the absolute gold mine of the solar system. The ice buried at the lunar South Pole isn't just for astronauts to melt and drink. Through simple chemistry, you split that water, H2O, into oxygen for the astronauts to breathe, and hydrogen, which is the exact highly combustible fuel needed for these commercial rockets. The moon essentially becomes a giant low-gravity gas station.
Okay, the giant gas station analogy makes it click. So the crucial point here is that this isn't just a government science project anymore. We are talking about the private sector moving in to build a real economy.
Precisely. But when private companies start mining the moon, you need a serious legal framework. Enter DARPA's Luna 10 architecture, which maps out how all this infrastructure will plug into each other. You pair that with the Artemis Accords. Over 60 nations have signed the accords, which creates a transparent legal blueprint. It essentially allows private companies to have exclusive protective control over the specific resources they extract.
Because NASA is leaning so heavily on those private companies now, they actually just put out a very bold request for information. They want to radically simplify the human landing systems, the landers being built by companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin. They want to transition away from their massive government SLS rocket to purely commercial rockets. And their stated goal? Achieving a human landing every 6 months.
Every 6 months? That is a literal conveyor belt to the moon.
Exactly. Think about the Apollo era, where we sometimes waited years between missions. A 6-month cadence totally changes humanity into a spacefaring species.
You know, just taking a wide view of these craters, it really hits you. The moon is no longer just this distant, romantic, scientific curiosity that we visit once a generation to plant the flag. It is rapidly transforming into a bustling, self-sustaining industrial marketplace.
It really is. We are watching the birth of a vibrant Cis-Lunar economy. And just to clarify, Cis-Lunar means the entire economic zone and space between the Earth and the moon. It's happening right before our eyes.
Alex, but there's a twist here, isn't there? It's not just about the moon.
There is a major twist. The master plan isn't just about lunar mining, the surface base, the commercial economy, the hopping drones. It is ultimately all just a practice run. The true endgame, the absolute ultimate destination for humanity, is Mars.
Wait, Mars? Already? We haven't even poured the concrete on the moon yet. Yes, NASA has already announced a mission called Space Reactor 1, or SR-1 Freedom. It's launching in December 2028. Its primary job is to test nuclear electric propulsion in deep space. You see, traditional chemical rockets are just too slow and heavy to get humans safely to Mars. Nuclear propulsion cuts the transit time down significantly. And get this, SR-1 is carrying a fleet of robotic helicopters to Mars to scout future landing zones for human missions. The moon base is literally just how we learn to survive so we can conquer the red planet next.
December 2028. That is just around the corner. Okay, I have one last question for you, Lena, and for everyone joining us today. When humans finally step onto the dusty surface of Mars from a nuclear-powered ship, after practicing and surviving on the moon, what will their first words be?
That is the multi-billion-dollar question, Alex, and whoever gets there first gets to write that history.
What an absolutely incredible time to be alive. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, Lena. And to our listeners, keep your eyes on the stars because the future is arriving much, much faster than we ever thought. See you in the next Explainer.